next generation of warfare, psychological warfare. In modern conflict, the mind is a potent weapon. Discover General Michael T. Flynn's groundbreaking guide, The Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. Unlock tactics, strategies, and the mindset to navigate this cognitive battlefield that we all find ourselves in. Equip yourself against manipulation and emerge unscathed. Unleash your potential. Order now.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the AlphaWarrior Show. I am your host, Alpha, if you haven't figured that part out yet. It is Wednesday night, which means it is Operation Gladio night. It is August 26, 2026. I don't know. It just has a ring that I enjoy. And we're about 5 days from August 31st. And I just feel like that day is going to be significant. I don't know, maybe a hunch. Tonight, we're talking NATO, media, and movies, and it just makes me think of a lot of Hollywood stuff that has referenced different parts of the world, different wars, different conflicts, different revolutions, like a lot assassinations. It just seems like, every time we think about history or a story or something we study, there's a Hollywood movie or a show that we can reference. And now I look back and I'm like, was that just a coincidence? Because I don't really subscribe to coincidences anymore. If you guys haven't done so already, do me a solid. Smash the heart, smash the thumb, leave a comment, share this content out. Let's get this audience as big as we possibly can, because we're about to get into Operation Gladio, which is, knowing that is the deep state's greatest fear. But before we do that, and before I bring on the amazing colonel that you guys want to hear from, let me get to one of the amazing sponsors of tonight's show that allows us to bring you this content and to do it in a way where we can keep it free and nobody controls what we talk about. Who am I talking about? Listen to this. Hint LTV hydration. We've gone here before. Okay, I've got to tell you about something. With the recent heat waves we were all dealing with, 119 today, folks, in Southern California. Got the air conditioner down, set to 75, and it's just like, just hovering at 78. I'm like, I'm hot. Come on. Anyways, I've been thinking about this a lot more because I don't know about you, but I've been drinking water constantly this summer and I still feel tired, bloated, dehydrated. Like no matter how much I drink, nothing actually is sticky. I thought it was just bad dealing with heat, like a lot of people think. Turns out that it's something else entirely. One night I went down a rabbit hole trying to figure out what was actually going on, and I came across a video from this doctor. Dr. Josh, not our Josh, but another Josh, a practicing physician, 25 years plus. And he was talking about something I'd never heard of before. Liver dehydration. Not dehydration like you just need to drink more water. He was actually said that it's a part of why people stay stuck, especially in summer, when everyone's chugging water and still feeling depleted. He explained that your liver is the organ responsible for distributing hydration at the cellular level. And if your liver cells aren't holding onto water properly, it doesn't matter how much you drink, it just passes through without doing what it's supposed to. Yes, I was thinking the same thing, like, what? Which is exactly why you can be sweating through a heat wave, drinking water all day, and still feel completely wiped out. The downstream effects: low energy, slow digestion, bloating, stubborn weight, that foggy, dried out feeling that makes you seem like you're a decade older than you are, you look like a raisin. He also said that most electrolyte drinks completely miss the point. They're just sugar and salt, not designed with liver function in mind at all. Y'all can think of some popular sports drinks that fit that. So he created something, and it is called LTV, which stands for Lifetime Vitality. LTV uses clinical dose marine electrolytes paired with taurine to help your cells actually retain water, not just move it through. Plus milk thistle and dandelion root, which are traditionally used to support the liver's natural detox and hydration function. If you've watched any of the shows where we've talked about liver, you've heard us bring up things like dandelion root and milk thistle. And unlike other electrolyte drinks I've been wasting money on, or you've been wasting money on, this one has zero sugar, zero carbs, and zero calories. The reviews were enough to convince me. They'll be enough to convince you. Thousands of people, results faster than they expected. I ordered it that same night. I've been drinking it every morning. And honestly, especially with how brutal this summer has been and still is, I feel like I'm a completely different person. The afternoon crashes are basically gone. The bloating has calmed down. I feel clear headed, actually hydrated for the first time in a while. I'm not someone who talks about these products unless I genuinely like them, like I do this one. So if you're out here drinking water all summer and still wondering why you feel so drained, this is the solution. Go to drinkltv.com. drinkltv.com/alpha. Dr. Josh is running a limited time offer right now. Save up to 57% and get a free bag, only available through our link. It's summer. You need this. So go and get it. You see it right there on the screen, folks. Up Wellness LTV, detox your liver, hydrate your body, electrolyte boost, hydrate deeply, liver detox support, 0 grams of sugar. And with that, now, folks, it is showtime. Let me welcome the person that we all want to hear from, Colonel. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Just got to make sure my people stay hydrated. So,
especially as hot as this summer's been.
I'm not joking when I say I had the air conditioner cranked down to 75 and it's just hovering at 78. And I'm just looking at it like, this sucks. So, you know what else sucks? This audience learning about Gladio and the deep state being like, how do we stop them? So we're talking Nato and media.
So let me say a couple of things before we get into the material. I know this audience is paying attention, but I wanted to highlight a couple of news stories that came out this week of why all of what we're talking about matters so much. The recent revelations, depending on what news report you read, they say it's foreign support for Antifa. Now, I've said all along that Antifa looks and functions like a Gladio entity. Well, today it was revealed that one of the support mechanisms is coming out of Italy. And of course, Italy is home of Operation Gladio. And so whoever dropped that news report, and I don't remember who it was, or I would give them credit for it, but I did repost it on my X account. And I found it very interesting. Usually, if it's not a NATO member, they will tell you, like, oh, Iran's behind it or China's behind it or whatever. The fact that they only refer to it in official news release as foreign, and then, lo and behold, it's actually at least a part of the support mechanism is coming out of Italy. It begins to make a lot more sense for those of us who understand Operation Gladio. So I found that very interesting. And just the mechanics of it, when you look at the way it operates in the cells that it has spread throughout the United States, it becomes very obvious that it fits that model. And so I was not at all surprised when that news came out that that was part of that infrastructure. So that's why I think all of this background that we've done is so important, because it allows us to contextualize the information as it comes out in a way that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So having said that, I came across, let me get his name right, Kit McClareberg. He writes a lot. He's in Europe. He's actually in the UK. And he writes for a bunch of different outlets. He has his own website, and I always check his website. He publishes stuff about once a week. He has received several leaked documents out of the UK government. And so he's kind of one of my go-to sources as far as getting information of what's happening in Europe. And he published an article back in May. And I've been watching this, and I've been trying to flush out some of the information that he put in it as far as some of the players. And it became very interesting after I'd had it kind of on the back burner. But when I went through the last few weeks that we did with the CIA funding the European movement and the creation of the EU, and then an American / Canadian being behind the development of the euro, it all made this article, and I was desperately trying to find it, so I did, and I kind of put a few pieces together. The topic is he summarizes it at the beginning, and it says a scandal erupted over covert NATO conferences with Western entertainment industries. Leaked documents show how NATO had sought to infiltrate film and TV for decades with UK intelligence operatives. And obviously, we've done a lot of research into and talked about some of the actual CIA agents that are assigned to Hollywood. And it's funny that you talked about the movies, because so much of this work over the years does play out in movies to a large extent, with the CIA always either, there's one of two endings. They either are the good guys at the end of the story, or they're portrayed as bumbling idiots, right? Those are your two options. And we know that neither one of those is actually true. And so I started, for my Rumble, they require you to do like 5 hours of premium content to be in the club. And so I had been doing different things for that requirement, but I didn't like putting it behind the premium membership. And so I was talking to a couple of people, and they said, why don't we have like a movie night? And so we started, I asked for everybody to give me names of movies that they thought depicted Gladio. And so we did kind of a poll and decided, the first several movies that we were going to watch. And I noticed somebody in the comments while you were talking said some of our fears. We just watched that movie together. I had never seen the movie. And because I'm not a movie watcher. I don't watch any movies. I tell everybody.
But Colonel, that one?
None. The only movie I've watched in the last 10 years was the sequel to Top Gun. And that's literally the only movie I watched in the last 10 years. So we've watched several. We watched Rogue Nation and a few others. And it's been fun because I even bought some organic popcorn. We've just kind of made it a big deal. And so it kind of comes full circle when I come back to this article. So obviously we know that the intelligence agencies has been involved in the entertainment industry for a long time. So he says that The Guardian released an article last May, on May 3rd, that said NATO had held a series of meetings, secret meetings. They were covert meetings with film directors, screenwriters, and TV producers in Los Angeles, Paris, and several other major cities. And the disclosure indicated that NATO was going to be employing the entertainment industry in a propaganda operation. As we're, obviously what's going on in Europe right now is they're preparing for World War III, right? They have made all of their different crazy radical comments about, and none of them based in fact. And Warhamster and I are going through, we just finished with World War I. We're going to lead into World War II and kind of tell the real story of how those wars were basically banker wars, with oligarchs' fingers in all of the pies. And it really does make sense that if you go back and you look at all of the propaganda surrounding getting us into World War I and World War II, that on the precipice of World War III, where NATO is going to collectively go to war with Russia, that they would be doing something like this behind the scenes, right? It just kind of fits the model. And so, as you say, there's no coincidences. So NATO's conversations with the screenwriters reportedly inspired, at least in part, 3 separate projects, which are already in development. At a forthcoming London summit, which by now has already occurred, NATO operatives were set to meet with screenwriters tied to the Writers Guild of Great Britain to basically develop this propaganda. And it says that organizers claim that NATO was built on the belief that cooperation and compromise, the nurturing of friendship and alliances, is the way forward. The alliance is actively seeking to produce films and TV projects extolling the virtues of NATO, basically a psychological operation to cast NATO as this wonderful entity. And of course, anybody that follows us knows that NATO was set up by Nazis for Nazis. The entire civilian staff of the Nazis for the first, the civilian side, because there's two sides, there's the military chain of command, and then there's the civilian secretary general of NATO. That civilian side for the first 20 years was filled almost completely with Nazis, rehabilitated Nazis. And then, of course, we know the military side started out with Eisenhower, who then goes on to be president and then uses NATO in stay-behind units and sets that entire network up, as well as use them in Iran and Guatemala and their attempted coup in Indonesia before the end of his presidency. And so there's precedent for everything that we're talking about in real time.
Let me ask you this, Colonel, and I feel like we've talked about this, or maybe it was on SitRep. Did I ever tell you about the movie Argo with Ben Affleck? It's from 2012.
No.
Okay. I want to play a clip real quick. It's probably about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, because it's literally kind of, again, this is Hollywood, but is it really? To what you're saying. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with this, and because we're showing this on YouTube, I'm going to show a clip. The movie is Argo. It's starring Ben Affleck. Make sure you go and watch the movie and support those actors. And we're going to show it for educational purposes. Let me bring this on the screen, and you are going to definitely enjoy this. All right, let me make sure the volume is on.
Telling how powerful it is, from political theater to the way we kind of communicate to our children, to the way that we inspire people, and it's interesting that Hollywood and, the clandestine services are both spend most of their time convincing people that something that's not true is in fact true.
You don't have a better bad idea than this?
This is the best bad idea we have, sir. By far.
The United States.
Hollywood sort of develops this way of telling stories and oftentimes uses that and philanthropic causes or political causes, which people may or may not think are good. But, there are really positive offshoots. Mostly, I think it's, self-serving and kind of designed to be that way. But
so you get the point. It goes on. She ends up asking him, so you're playing a CIA operative as an actor, so are you? And he's like, well, if I was, you blew my cover. He goes, maybe, like it's funny the way he says it. Now, when I first saw this, I wasn't thinking anything outside of, he's doing, a film documentary, but hindsight 2020 with my Gladio glasses on, I'm like, holy shit. Like Ben Affleck is literally telling us to our face.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yes. That's a perfect segment for this show. It's perfect. And to know that in 2026, NATO is still doing this. So this is where, to me, it got very interesting. The Kit goes on to say that the conclusion between NATO and the entertainment industry is well established. That NATO has covertly employed film and television as psychological operations specialists, which you just illustrated, and to influence popular culture. Now, you guys remember the Congress of Cultural Freedom, which was a CIA front company that was set up to basically, post-World War II, influence culture, art, literature, movies, everything. They didn't stop doing that just because they were outed as a CIA front. They just changed the shingle outside and continued doing it. So One of the core people behind this was a guy by the name of Chris Donnelly. He's a veteran British Ministry of Defense and military intelligence operative. He led basically the expansion into all of the things that are now creating such turmoil for Russia, the expansion into Eastern Europe. Chris Donnelly was behind the expansion of NATO. So ask yourself, who's Chris Donnelly? Because he's a very interesting guy. He was in charge of this thing called the Integrity Initiative, which right away naming, we know that it has zero integrity in it, right? Because they name everything the opposite of what it is. And there was an article written based on leaked documents that revealed there was an international network of politicians, journalists, academics, researchers, and military officers that were engaged in a highly deceptive covert propaganda campaign funded by the British government, NATO intelligence agencies, Facebook, and national security NGOs. This network, according to one of the documents, centered around the thing called the Integrity Initiative. And it was basically a previously unknown English-based think tank registered in Scotland. It was called the Institute for Statecraft. It operated in complete secrecy. It was basically ran by British military intelligence. And several people had talked about it being associated with the University of Bristol and the director of an organization for propaganda studies and integrity initiative. That was the beginning of it. And the most senior government people are professional propagandists and spooks, according to one of the guys that was researching this. This quote unquote charity or NGO was led by Chris Donnelly. So he's still the guy that's doing it. He was a colonel in military intelligence at the beginning of the project. So it is basically an intelligence propaganda initiative. So when you start talking about Chris Donnelly, it's very important to know who you're talking about. Interestingly enough, if you search Chris Donnelly and you start talking about this charity, you come across somebody's name that you're going to recognize, Sebastian Gorka. Sebastian Gorka was, for those of you who don't know, we'll just talk about him a little bit here. He's the son of a Hungarian exile. Gorka joined the British Army intelligence unit when he was at university in the UK. He then goes on to international security studies, and his mentor was Chris Donnelly.
Get out of here.
Huh?
So, no, I was saying get out of here like that. So let me share a real quick story with you, Colonel, involving Sebastian Gorka.
Okay.
Before Twitter became X and it was just old school Twitter, right? Under the foot of tyranny, right? We all experienced the censorship and the purge. Twitter came into the beta spaces. So those only certain accounts that could hold spaces. Much different time. And this is when I was doing a lot of the canine work, so I'd be up at just crazy hours. So Sebastian Gorka comes into one of the spaces. It's a particular space. Well, it doesn't matter who was there, but it was just some of the OGs, right? Some military people present. no one of high stature, just normal vets. And he's being pretty open with us and letting us ask him questions. And so I started asking him a question, and it had to do with Trump, his first administration, and the conflict that he had on trying to get his people appointed. Like I was like, this, I struggled, because you got to remember, this is at the front end of all this. Like, I'm still learning, Colonel. And so I struggled with, how can the most powerful man in the world not get his effing people appointed? Like, my brain didn't compute it. It's especially because we're military. It's like a general who can't get what he wants on a base. Like, it doesn't register.
Right.
And so I'm gonna try to quote him. I won't quote. I'm gonna summarize as best as I can what he said. But there's one particular part that's specifically a quote. He goes, the best, with his accent, right? Because he has this cool accent. He goes, the best way I can describe this to you, Alpha. He goes, it was like we were making drug deals. Drug deals. That's his quote. We were making drug deals to get the president's people appointed. That's how much corruption exists right there. And I remember thinking, like, yo, this is Sebastian Gorka. Like, this is the dude that had routine conversations with the presidents, and he's literally saying it was so corrupt that it's to the definition of it. It was like making drug deals to get people appointed. And now you're telling me we're talking about the Integrity Initiative, which is the Institute of something that it transformed, which is Chris Donnelly, and this guy, Donnelly's this guy's mentor. Like, this is just crazy to me.
Yes. And Donnelly, if you research him, his entire career has been pushing Russia into war. That's what he's all about. Every bone in Chris Donnelly's body is positioned. He is personally involved in bringing all of the Eastern European countries into NATO and the EU, which obviously from as far back as World War II, I know people like to say, the famous thing that was said in the 1990s about not moving eastward, but that was a promise that was made at the end of World War II as well. So they have been actively antagonizing Russia for a very, very long time. Okay. And this kind of like comes out of this guy's pores. And he is one of the guys that mentored Sebastian Gorka in the UK. And bringing Chris Donnelly's activity into modern day, he is also alleged to be the architect of the Kerch Bridge bombing. And if you guys don't remember what that is, that's the bridge that goes into Crimea. Remember when it was blown up?
I do remember that.
That was Donnelly. That was
like, what, 3 years ago or something like that? It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. That was Donnelly's doing. Donnelly personally endorsed Gorka's PhD thesis, granting him the moniker of being a top intelligence officer in the British Ministry of Defense. This relationship gave impetus to Gorka's career within the Atlantic Alliance and military infrastructure. It also cost him his security clearance in Hungary, because basically the Hungarian National Security Office accused him of being a UK spy. And that was when Gorka resigned from the first Trump administration. These documents also exposed Donnelly as the founder of this integrity initiative. And basically the entire aim of the integrity initiative was drumming up war with Russia through covert international propaganda. And in 2019, there was a funding proposal submitted by the Integrity Initiative to the British British Ministry of Defense that their stated goal was to deliver a tougher stance on Russia by arranging more information published in the media of the Russian threat. So Donnelly visits Washington in 2018 to expand this secret initiative. The very first person he meets with is Sebastian Gorka in 2018.
I can't wait to hear more about this. I'm going to interrupt you real quick, Colonel. Two things. One, I want to get to an amazing sponsor. The second thing is the institute. Geez, my tongue is twisted now. The one that we're just talking about that Chris Conley did, the Integrity Initiative. I'm sorry, the Integrity Initiative. I went to their site right now, and I'm going to bring it up after we get to this ad. And when you look at the people or the entities that they're connected with, you're just going to be like, come on. Like, come on. So before we get there, folks, if you're like, Alpha, how do you do all this work and stay focused? Well, there's a QR code that's on your screen. I would suggest probably taking a screenshot of that. This episode is sponsored by Ultra Pouches. If you've ever hit that midday wall where you're reaching for another cup of coffee, like I want to, an energy drink, or just need to lock in, I've been trying Ultra Focus pouches. Check this out right here, just so you can see what they're like. Let me bring this on the screen. These bad boys right there. They're nicotine-free, caffeine-free pouch designed for smooth focus and energy without the crash. I've been keeping the blue Raz cans right here on the desk, and it's mine, sweet tart, and honestly reminds me of blue raspberry candy. Who doesn't like candy? Ultra uses nootropic ingredients like Infinity PX, L-theanine, Alpha GPC, like we don't like that word, and vitamins B6 and B12 to support calm, steady focus when you need to get things done. You just pop one in, and it's an easy way to upgrade your routine, whether you're working, creating, gaming, or heading to the gym. If you want to try nootropic pouches, go to takeultra.com. That's takeultra.com and use the code ALPHA, and you'll get 15% off your first order. So again, that's takeultra.com, code ALPHA for 15% off. And when they ask where you heard about them, tell them our show right here at Gladio is the one that sent you. Instant focus in a pouch, folks. Take advantage of that. And so with that, now I want to show you this, Colonel. Let me bring this on so I can keep my promise. So this is the Integrity Initiatives International. And of course, it talks about the history or their about story. But as I was scrolling down, because this is what I like to do when you tell me these entities, I always want to scroll down. This is what I come across. The Climate Change Collaboration, the MacArthur Foundation, Rockefellers and Brothers Fund, and of course, one that you guys definitely know, NED, the National Endowment for Democracy. And obviously you got the Wayfarer Foundation. I'm not too familiar with them. And Sigrid Rosing Trust. I'm not too familiar with them. I'm sure if we dug, we'd find things. But just right there, you have the MacArthur Foundation, Rockefeller, and NED.
Yep. Tells you all you need to know, right? So, it only became public how all of these dots are connected with leaked emails from Donnelly. They're his own personal emails. In those leaked documents, they were discussing NATO expansion. And this is a quote from Donnelly. What I needed in the 1990s and did not have was a major international public relations firm to scale up successful activities to have real impact. To achieve essential behavioral change in audiences. To address the problem, he proposed advertising campaigns on television promoting change. One of his emails even said they need a TV soap opera looking at the problem of corruption and other innocent, seemingly cultural products aimed at enhancing NATO control. Yeah. So in this is actually an excerpt from his email. He says, in the 1990s, where we got Henry Strickland to work in government bureaucracies and business buildings, behavioral change bottom up. We engaged the Orthodox bishop to the EU, Emmanuel of Riom, to bring leaders of all religions from Belgrade to a workshop at a monastery in Greece to get them on site and to engage the Catholic hierarchy via a parish or a diocese link that gave us local publicity and trust. Nothing says trust like using a religion to propagandize people. He goes on, we engaged in military and police services, taking recently retired senior UK counterparts to talk to locals and discuss collaboration. Work after retirement. Sir General Rupert Smith and Air Marshal Sir John Walker led this for Conley. It diffused local opposition from power ministries. Now think about all the general officers coming out talking about basically Russia is the boogeyman here in the United States. None of that is organic. You have, go ahead.
You have, I might even have it up, the Wall Street Journal today, because CIA Ratcliffe just landed in Moscow.
Yeah.
And I don't have it up, but their headline essentially was Ratcliffe lands in Moscow to warn them against attacking NATO, to what you're saying right now.
But that is not why he was there.
Oh, I agree with you completely,
Yeah.
but it's exactly what you're saying. He
Yes.
went over there to go deal with the boogeyman.
Yes. And that is propaganda. And it fits right in line with what we're talking about. And that's why I think it's divine intervention that all of these pieces for me came together with this. And we're watching our news where the CIA is visiting Russia. And I can guarantee you he is not there to convince Russia not to attack NATO.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah, I think there's a whole lot. And he also went to Lativa, which also is one of those rabble rousers right now with, we got to hit Russia. We got to hit Russia along with Finland. You have what the recent articles that just came out about the UK building part of the drone capability in the UK. You have all the Germany's contributions. I just wrote an article about a company that is actually in Portugal, and they had the one US prior military guy on their board that registered in Delaware. So it looks like it's a US corporation when the actual facilities is in the Ukraine. The funding came from Portugal, and then they added a US former military person to make it a quote unquote US. So when it got bombed, it was, the story headline was they were bombing an American company, when in fact the company had literally nothing to do with America except for this one token guy serving on the board who had no investment in the company at all. And so this is what I'm talking about. This is all propaganda. This is all propaganda to basically accuse Russia of attacking NATO so that they can justify a false flag event in order to go into basically what would amount to World War III.
And the timing, like you said, is it's pretty much divine, because you had less than a week ago Putin come out. He does an interview. Now, granted, it's the subtitles I had to read because I don't understand Russian. But he says, hey, I'm ready for peace talks. But I talked about this on one of my shows. Something he said, Colonel, which caught my ear. He goes, I'm ready for peace talks as long as they reflect what's actually happening on the ground.
Correct.
I was like, that's an interesting statement there for us that are listening to it. And then the timing of that. And then a few days after that interview, listen, Ukraine's a cesspool of fraud and corruption. I think we all understand that. So we know Zelensky is that guy's no saint. You know, he's a bad guy. That's the way I see Zelensky. But yet a few days ago, he arrests, I forget what the lady's her name is, but it's like Murad, but she was pretty much the chief of the presidential office, and she gets arrested after an investigation into her on money laundering and fraud. Now,
But
why in the heck?
Yeah, but he's not doing those investigations.
And I agree with you. And that's because that's what I told my audience. Why would a corrupt entity start doing investigations into fraud and all that when that's what they're all about? Yep. It means somebody else's hands are at play. And then you put the bow on it by our CIA director landing in Moscow.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, if he was only going over there to tell Russia not to attack the NATO, basically, he would have picked up the phone. Why didn't he pick up the phone? We have secured communications with Russia. He went over there for something much more significant.
Or all to pick something up.
Or to pick something up. So the hacked email goes on to say, and this is Donnelly speaking, what I needed in the 1990s, I did not have, was an equivalent of Edelman, who could scale up something successful to have real impact. I think there is a lot of work for them in achieving the essential behavioral change, like advertising campaigns on TV promoting change, the soap opera thing, courses in country and in London, teaching politicians, academics, and journalists to be intelligence assets. So Donnelly's aim also obviously was expanding NATO into the former Soviet Union, Warsaw Pact, and Yugoslavia by penetrating target countries, governments, militaries, and even religious organizations. That ensured a NATO-friendly lobby on the streets and throughout their power structure across the Eastern European countries. This experience was fundamental to Donnelly's creation of the Institute for Statecraft, which sounds exactly like that entity that Kissinger set up on Harvard that was a CIA front. It was through their subsidiary, the Institute of Statecraft. The subsidiary is called the Integrity Initiative. The Institute constructed clandestine connections with journalists, academics, military, and intelligence operatives throughout the Western world. They called them clusters. Now, I would argue that all of the senior general officers that have colluded, and including the seditious six, are part of this initiative. These networks would be mobilized to spread pro-NATO propaganda, encourage public and state level antagonism towards Russia. The Integrity Initiative played a huge role in laying out the Ukraine proxy war foundations. In an essay published on the Institute's website back in when? July 2014 by MI6, connected academic Victor Madeira openly laid out this objective. They declared a, quote, economic boycott, breach of diplomatic relations, unquote. And he also called for propaganda and counter-propaganda to produce armed conflict with Moscow. One that the UK and the West could win. So they're telling you in the immediate aftermath of the Maidan coup, the intelligence overthrow of the Ukrainian government, that they set up the objective to go to war in a circumstance that the UK and the West could win that war against Russia. This is 2014. He goes on to say that Madeira discusses precisely the kind of propaganda and counter-propaganda, quote, "will need to go beyond old-style military romps and get entertainment outputs that draw out the nature of the 21st century conflict, diffuse across society without clear boundaries at times, that the real fight we're fighting, we can more than hold our own on the military side of things." And that's exactly what you see right now with them beating their chests about all of this military capability they have when they have none. Their whole agenda is to do what they did in World War I and World War II. Start the war and then create a false flag to draw America into it. Because America has the military might. No one in Europe has the military might to go against Russia. None of them do. So that's basically what they're doing. They are setting up World War III through propaganda campaigns, through this organization. And you can see it play out in our media, the journalists, the senior military people, the academics, everything that he's talking about in this article, we're seeing happening. So in February of 2018, a writer on U.S. state culture, policy, and public diplomacy named Martha Bales, Bayles, emailed Donnelly to pitch a multi-episode, multi-season dramatic television series about Russia. It's set in the 1990s. Bales pointed out that the U.S. and U.K. co-production called McMafia, not making that up, would be an example of commercial and cultural dominance, a long-form TV program with an avid following of young and old alike. The widely watched program drew on former BBC World Service reporter Misha Glenning's 2008 nonfiction book of the same name. That's crazy to me.
I'm trying to find a post from the CIA that's about what you're talking about, but I can't find it, and I'm really bummed out. So I'll have to send it to you later when I find it.
Okay. Bales believed that there was an appetite out there for period pieces about recent past that would be a compelling reason to create a similar series about Russia in the 90s, when the country descended into neoliberal chaos and oligarchs could. So basically depict Russia as this corrupt, mafia-ridden entity when we're staring right at Ukraine. It's like mind-boggling. Ukraine fits that description, but they're going to take the corrupt Ukraine mafia bullshit and project it onto Russia in 2026. It's mind-blowing. Okay. They had a screenwriter that was convinced that Russia's traumatic time in many ways were crucial to set the stage for where we are now. No, it doesn't. It sets the stage for where we're at in Ukraine. She also added that it was such a traumatic period that it could be supported by scholarly and journalistic accounts by both Russian and Western participants. She suggested that Donnelly's own experience and knowledge would be invaluable to create this propaganda bullshit. The program needed to avoid the appearance of propaganda, she insisted, by saying black-hatted villains and white-hatted heroes. Otherwise, audience might suspect that the show had been developed as some powerful outside force with an ulterior information warfare agenda.
Imagine.
So as they're creating the ulterior information warfare agenda, they're saying we can't be too obvious because somebody might actually catch on. Oh my God. Then she goes on to say, she was certain that there are a lot of talented people out there that could pull this off. And it would be an entertainment-based response to Russia propaganda. So at this point, Donnelly and the British military intelligence veterans who staffed his Institute for Statecraft was hard at work weaponizing popular culture to drive public hostility to Russia. In January of 2019, a British state broadcaster interviewed a staffer at Donnelly's Institute, Ewan Grant, about the impact of suspect Russian money on London. And he basically says, how real is McMafia? The interview focused on suspected Russian money in London. Now, where did we find foreign money in London recently? Oh, all of the IRGC and the Ayatollah collective had hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate in London. The Ukrainian oligarchs have hundreds of millions of dollars invested in the city of London real estate. But let's put that all on Russia.
Well, to go to the putting it on Russia part, remember last year, folks, my personal opinion, I have no working knowledge of this. This is just my opinion. Do you remember it was Tim Pool, Benny Johnson? God, I don't remember the third one. It was a lady. All podcasters. And they were like, these podcasters are getting substantial money that's tied to Russia. And so they immediately started to push that this is Russian influence, right? Well, we're hearing about China now, but they're pushing on Russia. What comes to find out that there was money coming in from Russia, but into another company. And then that company made its way into, I know it was Tim Pool, Benny Johnson. I don't remember the third one, but it was a female. And then all of a sudden, you have Tim Pool that comes out and makes some comments about it. And he's just like, look, we're on the up and up here. Like, nobody tells us, what to talk about or not, believe it or not. But again, the narrative that was trying to be seeded at the time was that influence money was coming out of Russia into America. And then it just fizzled out as fast as it came. This is the part that's my opinion. I think there was some top cover from this administration that probably realized, yeah, these guys didn't know where it's coming from. And this was deliberate in order to create a narrative, propaganda on what this looks like. And that's probably what pushed that story out of the way so fast.
Well, it would definitely, and again, do we know that it was actually coming out of Russia and not through, and was that part of this Donnelly operation to pay for propaganda and make the allegation that Russia was doing it? Because it fits right in line with this story.
Yeah, I'll read you guys. I brought up just some quick facts for you guys. So this is, again, from the Devil's AI. So, we're real time. So vet it as you need. Tim Pool was linked to a covert Russian. Remember, this is what Google's getting paid to put out with their AI. Tim Pool was linked to a covert Russian funding scheme after a September 2024 U.S. Department of Justice indictment revealed that a Tennessee, imagine that of all places, Tennessee-based media startup he worked with, Tenet Media, received nearly $10 million from employees of a Russian state media network, RT. The key details of the allegations: the payouts, according to federal court documents, Pool was designated as a commentator 2 and was reportedly slated to receive $100,000 per weekly episode for his content. The operation, prosecutors stated that RT employees used fake personas and shell companies to covertly finance Tenet Media to publish online videos promoting Russian narratives and U.S. political division. The influencer response: Pool and other affected commentators, included David Rubin, Benny Johnson, publicly stated that they had no knowledge of the Russian backing. Pool declared himself a victim of the scheme on social media, emphasizing that he was unaware of the source of the funding. And the last part, legal status: the U.S. Department of Justice charged 2 RT employees with conspiracy to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act and money laundering, but did not allege criminal wrongdoing or awareness by the content creators themselves.
And you wonder why that we can find Russian interference and not the integrity initiative, right? So you have all of this other funding going on. They're talking about doing it in emails. Why doesn't that ever get exposed?
Think about it, Colonel. If it would have been a different administration in power right now, like Kamala Harris, this DOJ story would not have ended like that. It would have ended with Tim Pool in cuffs, Benny Johnson in cuffs, but it wouldn't have stopped there. Y'all would have seen poor Alpha dragged back into the news and CanCon because we all went on Tim Pool, and the story would have been sold. Oh, J6ers, right? Oh, MAGA. Oh, Trump supporters were collaborating to feed that Russian narrative. Like, I think that they would have ran that as far as they could have took it, and everybody that went on Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, David Rubin, whether you like these guys or not, anybody that didn't feed the narrative they wanted to or went against the grain would have gone tied into that Russian money.
Yeah, but I'm still back at the question, how can they find that and not Donnelly's network?
Because they don't want to yet. They can if they want to.
Yeah. Well, they're part of Donnelly's network.
Well, think about it this. If Doge looked into NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, and that money is getting funded into the Initiative Institute, how did you not pick? Of course, they had to see where the money was going.
Correct.
You have to see that connection.
Right.
They just haven't told us.
But we're telling you now. So also, Grant said that he was an expert on geopolitical transnational organized crime, according to a self-authored resume that he had set up. He worked closely with senior MI5 and MI6 operatives on the issue. In 2018, he was in very close proximity with former MI5 chief Jonathan Evans and the agency's chief at the time, Andrew Parker, and numerous veteran MI6 officials. They were among an extensive array of contacts that bragged that they could be leveraged to flood the airwaves with anti-Russian propaganda. Then there's a whole bunch of people, none of the people that we would recognize, but they are members of prior initiatives that illustrate the point throughout the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s of people that had been involved in this. And Kit goes on to say that this array of think tank intelligence veterans and journalists covering Russian organized crime would boast of providing source material for this propaganda campaign. So people who had been involved in investigating the aftermath. Now, keep in mind, what happened in Russia in the 1990s that they're referring to is that they wanted Russia to implode, and they did in the transition of the Soviet Union into Russia. The whole transition was set up to basically empower a mafia in Russia on behalf of the Western intelligence oligarchs who wanted to go in and exploit Russia and their resources. There was a mafia arrangement that they were basically going to buy up like the Gazprom and all of the major resources, and then they were going to begin selling them off to Western people. And that was a whole transition. That's where you got the Magnitsky guy, the Bill Browder, the Edmund Safra. They were all funding this transition that was basically going to exploit. They were treating the transition from the Soviet Union into Russia and the independence of all of the satellite countries as an opportunity, as a coup that they could go in and exploit. And so it's very interesting to me that they then use that mafia narrative to say to basically justify the entrance of the Western, for democracy. We've got to save Russia from Russian mafia people. And he talks about several of the journalists that they were working with that got basically awards and grants and all kinds of money to talk about all of this stuff at the BBC, the Financial Times, the Guardian. Those are the ones that they name. That was going to be kind of like the sources of all of this information that they were going to put in this like McMafia television initiative, this propaganda initiative. And this Martha Bales woman was listed as a key content at the Institute's information warfare area. And one of the leaked documents says that she was going to be used to make fictional work to reinforce messages about Russia in the mainstream consciousness. One of the memorandum of cooperations had been sent to her by Grant, and this was a quote, about opportunities jointly and separately in North America, UK, and elsewhere in Europe to have input into media documentaries and fictional entertainment. So basically, the bottom line is that the Institute for Statecraft had a British representative of NATO. And in the email, it said it was a community of policymakers, think tankers, diplomats, academics, and representatives from industry that was going to participate in the organization, and described its mission as, quote, informing the public of NATO's role in international peace and security and promote democracy, individual liberty, and the rule of law through dialogue, unquote. Now, does any European country today look like a democracy?
No. I just want to make sure I have Martha's last name correct on Bales. Bayles?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that we have stumbled upon the background organization that explains a lot of what we've been seeing over the past several years of this attack on Russia. And it goes back, not surprisingly, to intelligence agencies and NATO.
I would agree with you. Her husband, are you familiar with what she looks like, to make sure I got the appropriate one first?
I don't know what she looks like, no.
Okay, well, just kind of given, granted, Wiki doesn't talk a lot about the NATO or any of that other stuff, but it reports her as Martha Bales, is an American critic, author, and college professor. Her work focuses on arts, popular media, culture, U.S. public diplomacy. She's written books, Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, Claremont Reviews, graduated from Harvard, also went to University of Pennsylvania. She taught at Boston and Cambridge. There's like a lot of stuff that does seem to be consistent with what you're talking about. But this is why I think this is the correct one. She was outside of the U.S. She was given 2 speaking tours in Germany and for the U.S. Embassy, 1 tour in Poland as part of the Fulbright Specialist Program, and held several
Sorry, I did that out loud.
So I think this is the correct woman.
Yeah, I think so too.
So this is her on the screen for everybody that wants to get an idea.
The funny part about that, obviously, is
the Fulbright Specialist Program. Oh,
well, yeah, Fulbright. So for those of you who don't know, Fulbright is a Rhodes Scholar counterpart. Fulbright is one of those that is a grooming mechanism to basically covertly recruit people to observe them for potential recruitment into these intelligence operations, just like the Rhodes Scholars is. So
Well, this is you may want to look into this name. So her husband is Peter Skerry, or Scurry. It's Skerry. This is a little bit about him. This is all public information. Peter is a non-resident senior fellow in the government studies programs at the Brookings Institution and teaches political science at the Claremont McKenna College. He is the author and award-winning Mexican Americans, the Ambivalent Minority, Harvard University Press. Also described as a socialist and social critic, or I'm sorry, sociologist and social critic, helping Americans better understand our society. Looks like there might be some interesting things on this guy too. And then again, here's his book right here. Let me bring this up so you guys can see it. Trying to get it bigger so you guys can see. So here's his book, Mexican Americans. What will be the impact of the foregoing numbers of Mexican immigrants on the American society? So given what we're talking about, and it specifically talks about cases out of San Antonio and Los Angeles. So just interesting given her history, her connections, and who he is. Maybe something, maybe nothing. But nonetheless, wanted to share it with you guys. I'm super bummed that I didn't find that post for you, Colonel. I did find one other one that I want to share with you. But essentially the CIA post that I was looking for, and I know I have it because I have a screenshot of it, because when I find posts like that, I save them so I don't get rid of them. And I also showed it on a show probably last year or the year before. But it was a CIA post, and it said, it was just wild to me that they posted it. But it says, we're everywhere. We're plumbers, we're teachers, we're policemen. And I was like, wait, what? Did someone hack the CIA? And they're just like, I'm just gonna let everybody know the truth. Like, it just blew my mind that they put it out there. So again, whoever watched the show and saw that with me, you guys are my witnesses, because we pulled it up real time. It wasn't just a screenshot, but I can't seem to find it. I'll continue to look for it. But here's one I do want to show you, given what we've talked about before. So let me bring this up. This is from the CIA. And they've been doing this artifact of the week thing, and I've been sending some of these to the Colonel, because it's like they're telling Gladio, like it's literally like they're like, oh, we're gonna give Colonel a shout out without saying it. Like Wild Bill Donovan, they showed his military coat, they showed like some OSS stuff, but this one right here, this is CIA's artifact of the week, Air America ID card. Learn more. So I almost feel this is from June 2nd. And right here, let me see if it'll be a little bit bigger if I click on it. Well, not that much bigger. Let me open it in a new tab so I can make it real bigger. All right, so you guys can really see. Now I think I can zoom. There we go. So here's the Air America identification card that the CIA wanted to share. And it's a guy by the name of Tom Loom, Lincoln Union Mary, nationality American, job title operations manager, department, division, PENCO, date issued April 1st, 1973, expiration date March 31st, 1975, number 93397, and then a signature by the director of personnel, which looks like they have the initial CLL. CL Love, maybe? I'm not completely positive. But I almost felt like they were like, hey, y'all, you Gladio people, you guys are talking about Air America. Maybe this is a name, or the division, department, PENCO, or maybe even the date to look up. Maybe not. So we got a lot of great detectives in the audience that can look into that.
Yep.
I think the audience is saying that there's another troll. Let me see. Somebody might already got rid of them. There's a mod in. Oh yeah, the mod took care of it. All right, cool. But no, Colonel. So,
well, let me just. I find it interesting on that ID card and the date of it, because the date, April 73, that obviously I got this stuff committed to memory. That's when we were overthrowing the government of Chile. And did you know that Penco is actually a city in Chile?
Get out of here.
It is.
Okay, when was the date? Let me pull up the date that they posted this. Maybe that date's even relevant. They posted this June 2nd this year. So June 2nd at 10:14 a.m. Eastern time is when they posted it.
Okay, I'm gonna have to find it. That's hilarious.
That's fascinating to me. It's and one of the reasons it's fascinating is I do believe there are people out there that try to put breadcrumbs for us
Yes,
on certain things. And when they see us hit certain themes, I think they have a way of saying, remember the game in the pool, Marco Polo, Mark. I feel like they're doing that. Like the good guys help us with that, and we got to run with it. And I've shared this with you privately, and I've shared it publicly. One of the things that I think gave me such a successful detective career was I was not that guy that went to brief patrol and didn't tell them all the information because we wanted to hoard it. I was like, no, there's 10 of us that are in the bureau, or I can tell the entire patrol division and have all these eyes looking for what I want.
Right.
Well, I think people like me and you definitely have the benefit of an audience like this. Like, there's only so much we can do with our brain and the time that we have.
Right.
But when you tell the audience, like, hey, this could be something. There's thousands of people. Think about if this show will probably have somewhere between 40, 50, 60,000 people that watch it. Let's just say 1,000 of those people wanted to invest just 1 hour of searching. That's 1,000 hours of work.
So I have said this on my show a million times. Half of the information that I've researched came from the audience, not from me. The detachment alpha, I didn't find that. Somebody in my audience found it. And they DM'd me the information and it just blew up. The website, all of that stuff. So you're right. It isn't just us. It's an entire army of people that watch our shows, listen to our content. And I get DMs constantly from people going, oh, you talked about this. Have you looked into this, or have you seen this? And 9 times out of 10, I have not seen what they have provided me. I use it all, and incorporate it into whatever it is that we're doing. It's just an amazing experience. Both Bridget obviously does that a lot. Renee, another Illini, War Hamster, everybody that's in the audience are constantly feeding me information. And I'd say a good half of the information has came from the audience.
And this part's a bummer, and so I'll say it again to the audience. Actually, this reminds me of something, and I wish I knew the person's name that gave me the heads up today. But you know who you are. That I don't know if it was a message or even a comment because of how busy we are. But there was someone that was trying to scam people, my audience, in the comments, and so they created a profile look just like mine if you weren't paying attention. But they'll change like the O with the 0 or the I with the 1. And they'll be like, hey, go to this Telegram channel. And then this is where they start to scam people. So I just want to remind people, I will never solicit you in the comments of any platform to go to Telegram or go anywhere else, nor will I ever ask you to do any crypto stuff, especially when you guys know that's not my forte. If I'm communicating with you, it's happening directly through my website, which will be either alpha at the AlphaWarriorShow.tv or alpha at the AlphaWarrior Show the AlphaWarrior Show at protonmail.com. Those will be the only 2 avenues that I'll ever communicate with you. So anyone in the comments that tries to get you to go somewhere, that's a scam. So be very careful with that, people. And I think they've probably done it to you, haven't they, Colonel?
Not like that. Early on, there were a lot of scammers. We were attacked constantly. It's kind of settled down now. We get a few scammers, both in our chat and in the comments. But Bridget does a pretty good job of snapping them.
Yeah, just be very careful, folks. And they are doing a good job. Like, I'll see it, and they do a pretty good job of taking these guys down. But just understand, like, this has gone very sophisticated. I had an audience member that had showed me a clip of if you really paid attention, you could tell it wasn't my voice, but you really had to pay attention to it. But it was my voice saying something else, and I was like, that kind of freaky. Like, that is kind of freaky.
If you go to X, there's like 10 accounts that have duplicated me. And X, in order to report yourself, you have to scan your photo ID, and X will not recognize my photo ID. I mean, I had to use it to create the account when I got verified, but it was a different driver's license. And since then, I've changed driver's license, and I got a new one issued, and now they won't recognize me, so I can't report the accounts. There is another account on Rumble that is an impersonation account as well, that I reported, but the last time I looked, it was still up.
Send me both of those, because I do have a connect at X that I can ask them to see if they can do something about it, and I also have one at Rumble that I can ask to see if they can help you with that. So just send those to me. So again, folks, whether it's me and the Colonel, especially if it has to do with money or a large amount of money, you guys know how to reach us. Like, send $1 Rumble rant if you can't get my attention. Like, hey, Alpha, there's somebody asking me for like $100,000 in your name, and I'll be like, we haven't even talked. I don't even know who you are, so don't send it to them. You send it here. You send it right here. Just don't send it over. Don't send it to them. So just be careful, folks. We do have a lot of Rumble rants and super chats that came in, so we'll get to those. But I want to make sure we're done for tonight, right? I don't know if I cut you off because I got excited with the
I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention everything that you see about the demonization of Russia is not organic. And I just pointed out to you the initiative based on leaked emails out of the UK, the exposure of NATO doing exactly what we see happening all around us right now. It is not organic. The collection of senior military officers is not organic. The collection of journalists, not organic. The television programs and all of that other stuff, none of that's organic. They are trying to propagandize us.
Folks, if you don't think it matters now, wait till you start finding out the people that you've been interacting with on social media are tied to all the stuff the Colonel's been teaching us. Then you're gonna be like, damn, I should have paid attention. So just understand that. Our last sponsor of tonight, speaking of Rumble, is the Rumble wallet. So folks, we hear a lot about crypto, but here's the part most people miss. Crypto was created so that you could actually own and control your money. After the 2008 financial crisis, Bitcoin was designed as an alternative to banks. So instead of a bank holding your money, delaying transfers, or limiting the access, you're in control. And if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you have felt that problem. Now, fast forward to today. Everyone's heard of crypto, but getting started still feels complicated. That's exactly why I use Rumble Wallet. It takes all the complexity and it makes it simple. Choose what you want: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stable coins, or even digital gold backed by real gold. No complicated setup. It connects with MoonPay so that you can use your credit card, debit card, or bank and be up and running in minutes. Once you're set up, you can even support your favorite Rumble creators like me or the Colonel directly. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download the Rumble wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game. In just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. And speaking of that, here is our Rumble rents for tonight. So shout out Breadmaker62, one of the OG supporters of these shows, gifted 5 subscriptions. So thank you, Breadmaker, from me, the Colonel, and everybody that was on the receiving end of that. G Fontes 119 gifted 1 subscription. So thank you for that, G Fontes. Royal Ranger 201 is now a monthly supporter. Thank you for that, Ranger. R Broadway gifted 5 subscriptions. You guys are all taking care of each other tonight. I like that. And then dollar for dollar, R Broadway Alpha. It's hard to concentrate with the TDS troll. Can't you cattle prod him? Yes, I got one of them because I saw that, and then I saw that our mod took care of the other one. So let me know if there's any more. $20 coming in from Michelle 1791. I just wanted to say hi. Well, hi, Michelle. and let you and Colonel Towner know how much I appreciate you both. Well, thank you for that, Michelle. And then dollar for dollar, G Fontes 119 may or may not be relevant, but the issue date on the Air America card was April Fool's Day of 1973. Check that, dude. Nice catch on that, G Fontes. I'm literally saying April 1st, 1973. Didn't even realize. Yeah, April 1st, April Fool's Day. Good catch, G Fontes. And then last but definitely not least on Rumble, $100 coming in from the Boom Diggity. Amazing show. Thank you both so much. Thank you guys for supporting the work that we do. It's definitely appreciated. And then we got 3 that came in from YouTube. So Kat looking up 3625, 2 Jules, 100. Thank you, Kat. Easy to see the truth, 10 Jules. Here's my imaginary gold coin. Thank you for that, Easy. And then last but not least on YouTube, Easy to see truth again, 10 Jules, the floating heart. There you go. You guys appreciate that. One of the things you can really, really do to help support this show is go down in the description if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, and you're going to see the Gladio store. Go check that out. And if you keep scrolling down, you're going to see the links to follow the Colonel. Don't just go and follow the Colonel and stop there, but then share that with somebody so others can follow the Colonel. And with that, Colonel, I'll give you the final word. Where can people find you, and anything you want to say, and we'll call it a night.
Our show is at 4:00 on Monday through Friday on X on Spaces. We also simulcast that on Rumble, and then every Friday at noon I do a show with War Hamster on the secret societies, Skull and Bones, the Fabians, the Pilgrim Society. We're kind of going through the Pilgrim Society members right now. Chronologically, we're up to the end of World War I right now, in naming all of the Pilgrim Societies. I find that actually fascinating because it's an organization that most people have never heard of. So that's what I've been doing.
You guys go support the Colonel. And for all you that are watching the Colonel show on Rumble, go down and get the shorts and share those out, and you'll really help her show a lot. So with that, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Good night. God bless, and Semper Fi.